Whether you're delivering to YouTube, creating high-quality web screeners for your clients, or even outputting a Hollywood feature film, the Deliver page is designed for quickly configuring and delivering the highest quality movie files. In this lesson, you'll learn how to set up a batch render for multiple destinations and add a watermark to your exported media. At the bottom of the UI, click the Deliver page icon. Using the Timeline Quick Access menu, choose Lesson 24 from the list. The Deliver page is divided into 5 areas: the toolbar, which allows you to switch between file rendering and tape output, the viewer, which shows selected clips from the timeline, the render queue that lists all the jobs waiting to render, a graphical representation of the timeline, and the render settings panel for configuring the output format. We'll start with render settings. DaVinci Resolve has a variety of presets that are configured for some of the most common delivery scenarios. Scrolling over them reveals presets for YouTube, Vimeo, Apple ProRes, H.264, as well as export options for delivering to other editing and audio mastering applications, such as Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, Pro Tools, and so on. We'll start by selecting the Vimeo preset. Next to the preset is a menu that allows you to choose a different output resolution than the default 1080p setting. I'll leave this at the default. Before you can deliver your movie, you need to choose a file location. Click the Browse button and navigate to your desktop or a folder on your computer that you can easily locate. I'm going to create a folder and name it AH Final Renders. Click Create and then Save. At this point, the project is ready to be rendered for Vimeo delivery using the optimal quality settings for that platform. You could even have Resolve upload the rendered movie for you by checking this box. If you wanted to stop at this point and output the movie, you could do so by clicking the Add to Render Queue button. Then click the Render All in the Render Queue panel to the right. Click the X to remove this job from the render queue. However, if you wanted to customize the setting further, click the Custom button. You can change the video, audio, and file settings. We'll start with the video. When we chose the Vimeo preset, QuickTime was chosen as the format and H.264 as the codec. These settings are common for most web delivery platforms, so you most likely won't need to change them. The resolution and frame rate is based on the current timeline settings. In the quality section, you can change the bitrate. Currently, it's set for 10,000 kilobits per second, but you could increase this to 20,000 for a higher quality file that's still within Vimeo's quality threshold of 10 to 20 megabits per second for 1920 by 1080 HD video. The encoding profile includes options that are optimized for specific playback devices. For example, iPhone and Android devices prefer a baseline profile, which is a lower power consumption profile. The high profile will yield higher quality files, as it was originally designated as the profile used for Blu-ray discs. This is the profile Vimeo recommends. You also have the option to perform a single or multi-pass encode. You definitely want to choose this option because the encoder performs a first pass to gather information about the movie it's about to encode, such as how much motion is present in the frames and how dark some of the scenes are. In the second pass, the encoder uses that information to assign the optimal amount of bits to achieve the best image quality. The keyframe section is not about animation, but about the frequency of the reference video frames the encoder is using to determine what data is important. The higher the keyframe value, the higher the movie quality, but the higher the resulting file size. In most cases, you'll want to leave this set for automatic. Moving on to audio settings, the default codec is AAC, which is the preferred choice for audio encoding on most streaming platforms. In the bitrate strategy menu, you can choose a bitrate option. Constant bitrate will give you a fixed target bitrate for the entire movie, which is generally preferred, but you can choose a variable bitrate in which the encoder throws more bits at more challenging areas of the soundtrack, then reduces the bitrate for less challenging areas in order to make the file size smaller. The variable bitrate constrained option gives you the efficiency of variable bitrate, but limits the encoding to a target maximum. Vimeo's guidelines suggest a max bitrate of 320 kilobits per second, so we'll leave this where it is. Now that the video and audio encoding is configured, you can name the file that will be exported. Click the File tab to view the naming options. In the Custom Name field, enter Alien Hunter Web. You can also add a watermark to your movie. For example, you may want a watermark that includes a timecode window burn, or text that says, Do Not Distribute. Select the Video tab, then locate the Advanced Settings section. Make sure Data Burn-In is set for Same as Project. From the Workspace menu, choose Data Burn-In. The left side of the window includes a list of possible data types to overlay your video. select Record Timecode. In the viewer, a timecode window appears over the video. Use the settings area to the right to change the font, the window size, and other attributes of the overlay. Now place a check next to Custom Text 1. In the text input field to the right, enter Do Not Distribute. Then change its visuals to taste and close the window. Before we add this movie to the render queue, you need to decide what part of your timeline you want to render. By default, Resolve will render out a single clip of your entire timeline. If you want to have Resolve render out individual clips, then click this option. Notice the bar over the timeline changes color to indicate this render mode. Set this back to single clip. The range that will be rendered is determined by this Render Range pop-up menu above the timeline. Choosing Entire Timeline will render every frame from beginning to end. Choosing In-Out Range will render only the section between the in and out markers, which can be set by moving the playhead to where you want the render to begin and pressing I, then moving the playhead to where you want the render to end and pressing O. We'll be rendering the entire timeline. I should point out that this timeline is only for quick reference. You cannot edit or move clips around. The thumbnail timeline is used for quickly checking your grades. You could turn this off by clicking the Clips button. In any case, both timelines can be used to spot check your work before you export it. To prepare this timeline for rendering, click the Add to Render Queue button. The movie appears in the render queue in the upper right of the UI and is labeled Job 1. This should tell you that you can add multiple jobs to the render queue. For example, we might want to render a ProRes master file along with this web version. Let's do that now. Select the ProRes setting at the top of the Render Settings panel. From the Type pop-up, choose the ProRes flavor you want to render to. I'm going to choose the ProRes 422 HQ setting. For the data burn-in, choose None. In the file name field, enter Alien Hunter ProRes Master, then click the Add to Render Queue button. In the render queue, there are now 2 jobs ready for rendering. If you need to edit any of the settings, click the pencil icon and change the settings. I'll change the ProRes type to Apple ProRes 4444. To lock in your changes, click the Update Job button. The last step is to render these jobs. And there's one small catch that might trip you up. If you click the Render button now, only one job will render because only one of these jobs is selected. By deselecting any jobs, DaVinci Resolve will know to render the entire queue. Otherwise, Resolve only renders the job or jobs that are selected. The final step is to click the Render All button, and your movies will begin rendering in the order that they were added. A progress bar appears over the job that is currently rendering. When all the jobs are complete, right-click and choose Reveal in Finder to view your movies. In the next and final lesson, we'll look at how to manage the media in your projects.